Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here. It's another fantastic Friday. We're honored to be able to welcome former MP from Northside, Mr. Ezra Miller, as our guest. Gives us a chance to learn and especially appreciate the importance of civics and parliamentary procedure. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks too, not just for your constant reminder of the need to work together, but the importance of drawing alongside and learning and contributing. And if he doesn't mind, as Mr. Ezra Miller, I must say thanks. When you were, in office, you made it a point not just to engage the public, but to share from your expertise and your experience. We talk about civics in our schools, why it's not being taught, to the extent that it should be, and yet you've offered yourself, as a teacher, and a mentor. So thank you. Yeah. No,
but I believe that I have certain experiences that I can offer to the younger generation and stuff, and I'm very, 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 very much involved with the Aidan Mile Primary School and Pleasant High School. I'm the executive of the PTA. I used to be at Aidan Mile, but I've come off of that now. But I'm still very interested in the school, and I do whatever I can. If they want to talk about heritage, I'll go there, and talk about it. So, because I believe that they are the future, and we need to build them up and try and inculcate in them some of the principles and morals and ethics that seems to be so blatantly, obviously absent from what we have now.
Right. And our parents had it, their parents had it. They tried to instill it in us. And I'm hoping that through today's discussion, as much as we will learn about other things, that we'll come away, we'll go into a weekend. Some of us will, come Wednesday, it'll still be a work day. It will be no different. There'll be no extra pay. It'll just be the same. But for some, maybe it's a respite. Maybe it's a chance to chill. And in that, hopefully there's a thought process about the now and what is the future. Not,
somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago now if there's anything that keep me up at night now that I'm out of politics. And I said to him, I said, look, the thing that worries me is not individual players, because I believe that Cayman has always been, and Caymanians are a resilient people. And irrespective of what we have now, the country will survive them. But my concern lies in the fact that the institutions that we established to protect Caymanians, to protect Cayman, to keep the standards, to keep the country and the population involved, are being so eroded and basically made irrelevant. And I give you 2 examples. Parliament. To the best of my knowledge, and I must admit that I'm trying very hard to wean myself off the political stuff. But how many times have they met? Next month they will be in power for a year. How many times has Parliament met since that? Twice. The budget, and one other time that I can recall. The authority, the relevance, the checks and balances that Parliament is supposed to provide to the executive are solely absent. Let's look at look at the Standards in Public Life Act and the legislation, the anti-corruption legislation. When last have you heard anything about that? But you see family members being put on boards. You see family members being hired in positions of direct line of authority, etc., which are all prohibited under those legislation. The National Trust, which was established in the 80s to protect some of the heritage for Cayman, is being taken over by a group of people and slowly watered down. And they make subtle changes in the rules to their benefit and to the exclusion of Caymanians. And those are the kinds of things that go unnoticed. It's just a gradual creeping of the taking over of these institutions and making them irrelevant or making them solely to serve their purposes.
So as I listen to you then, it seems like across the board in almost every sector, in almost facet of life, we who have authority in that seem to be doing things to build our kingdom, build this empire and operate in silos because it benefits and protects us. If that is the case, then we're having, a divided society, a divided approach to everything.
I mean, one of the things that the economic migrants, I call them, have quite successfully did in Cayman is to follow the old English adage of divide and conquer. So they divide us monetarily, right? Those that they can buy and get them to toe the line, they're fine. They welcome them to their stuff and they use them. Those that they can intimidate in any other ways that suits them to get what they want. Let me go back to give the example of the National Trust and the erosion of the purpose and how things are happening now. Right? But 3 years ago, and listen, I've had many running battles with the National Trust. What they have done in my constituency, where they now own about 40% of all the arable land, right, in terms of depriving the generations of estate property from any future benefits of that land by offering them peanuts, $2,000-3,000 an acre for a piece of land because it's not good. We can't, it's important land. We need to protect it, but you don't have a 30-foot road, so it doesn't value anything. So I saw all this happening, and you will recall that I stood up in Parliament one time and unveiled the map. About 3 years ago, I went to the chairman of the National Trust Council and said, listen, I'd like to, how about inviting me to one of your council meetings? I'd like to mend fences and set up the Northside District Committee, because when the National Trust was formed originally in the 80s, Northside had probably the most active district committee. I was the one who insisted down in the LA that they had to have district committees, because when they were bringing the origin, it was just this national committee which was made up of them people, and the understanding was that you had to be, as Mr. Robert had told the people in Bordentown at a political meeting, you had to be a liver of Northside, or at least have roots in Northside, to be a Northside member. Well, they made a subtle little change that you can select where you want to be a member of, and we'll get back to the significance of that as I complete the story. Mm-hmm. So I was that was totally rejected by those forces, and the young people, young Caymanians who were there, were interested in what I had to say and listened to me. The rest of them just discounted it, and so nothing happened. So in August or September, I heard that the National Trust was negotiating a deal with DART for him to build these riding trails on National Trust land, and he was going to pay them for it. Well, I heard that it was $10,000, right, per month. Well, that was wrong. It's $12,000 a year, because I got it. I eventually, the EIU eventually produced the outline of the document. So I went to the National Trust Council and said, look, I'd like to get the Northside District Committee up and running. Oh, no, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah. Oh, man, that's good. Yeah. Okay, well, I'd like to have a meeting in a couple of weeks' time, and the Constitution says you need to give 7 days notice to it. We'll have a public meeting, and we'll elect a chairman and the officers. No, sir, you don't need to do that. We can appoint you. We will appoint you chair. No, that's not what the law says. Well, but that's how we just set up the East End one. Really? But that's illegal. So I don't have no part of that. Anyway, so they didn't send out the notice. So I called them up and said, listen, we can't have the meeting on this particular date. I think it was like the 18th of November, because the notice hasn't gone out to members. So I said, well, let's set another date. So we set the date then for the 6th of December to have this public meeting. So I said, well, can I have a list of the Northside members? No. I mean, no, you can't have the list. Well, the membership list is usually attached to your annual report, so it's no secret, Mm-hmm. No, I can't have that. So then I set the EIU on the thing. I said, I need to find what's going on here. So that little subtle change that they had made now, where anybody could say, I want to be on the Northside National Trust District, or West Bay, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Now comes into play. Then, as we get nearer to it, I hear that, they're because, the other thing that, you need to send your bio to the National Trust Council. For what? Well, we need to approve you. Really? I'm a life member. I joined days after the law was passed. Right? So I don't need no approval. The other little change they made was that they set up a membership committee to approve the members. Right? But fortunately, up until this point, they haven't laid out any criteria for membership other than fill out an application form and pay your fees. So I had started from August now, talking to people in Northside, getting them interested, building up, interest, because most people hate the National Trust in Northside because of what they've done to their inheritance. And I had many long arguments with people about why we should support the National Trust. I said, well, the biggest reason we need to support now is because these assets are in Northside, and under the law, if we have a Northside District Committee, they have to consult us. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I then found out that you could actually be a member in more than one district, right? Yeah. So then the executive arm, this is who I hold responsible for it, They wanted Tony. They had other people who was interested in being the chairman. I said, that's fine with me. No, that's fine. I come to this meeting and get elected. Anyway, in full support of the executive and the council, this meeting was planned at the William Poucher Memorial Church Hall for the 6th of December. Keeping them informed all along. That's the Monday. The Sunday night, I got an email about 5 o'clock in the evening, after 5 in the evening, said they are moving the venue to the Civic Center for COVID. So I immediately go back to the council and say, listen, I don't know anything about the Civic Center these days and whether it's been cleaned or not cleaned or whatever. Last time I went in there, some of the disposable bins from the COVID testing that they were doing, they were still in the building, right? But I know that my church hall is sterilized and cleaned every week because we have Sunday school in it. So that's not the whole, I can assure you that we have the space for everybody to wear masks, and even with a mask, we can have the 6 feet separation. No. So they had, and I refused to because I had PSAs running on the radio and everything else. I refused to go to their meeting because we had a meeting. We had our meeting. We insisted that everybody had to prove not only that you was a member in good standing of the National Trust, but you had to be a member of the North Side, a North Side member of the National Trust, in order to vote. And the Constitution clearly does not authorize the use of proxies. So no proxies would be accepted. So much so that one of my good friend, Mr. Don Ebanks, who proved to us that he was a member in good standing, but he couldn't get from the executive proof that he was assigned as an outside member. So he couldn't vote. So he conducted the election because he couldn't vote in this election we have in.
So wait a minute, this is probably someone who actually was born in our side.
Yeah. But he couldn't, he just couldn't prove it. So he couldn't credential.
You set a standards high one.
We had a form that we credentialed everybody on, right?
Wow.
In the meantime, they had a meeting at the Civic Center where they allowed proxies from people, we don't know who they are. I have asked for the minutes, can I get in a copy of it? Nothing, right? They elected 2 foreigners from Cayman Kai, chairman and deputy chairman, right? So I have told them that I'm going to take them to, I'm seriously, I'm taking them to judicial review because they didn't follow the law. They didn't give adequate notice of their meeting. When they did advertise it, they didn't advertise it as what little notices had on the Monday. It wasn't a Northside District Committee meeting. It was a general meeting, which makes it even worse because they needed it. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that, you see, we allow these people to get in these institutions, right? And then they deliberately, consistently, right, erode the opportunities for Caymanians to have input into the process, because when you talk to them, they're very intimidating. They believe that they know everything. And these are my concerns, and this is not unique to the National Trust, right? I think this is unique to all the professional organizations that we have. Whether that be the Law Society, well, we know the tumultuous affairs that have been going on there for the last 20 years. We have one was Cayman and one was foreigners. We put them together. We put the same people in charge, And all the associations to which Caymanians should be welcome, giving leading roles in these associations and these organizations, and so they can promote Caymanian. And because this is our country, we can't crow and be promoted in our own country. Where are we going to get? Mind, there are many of us who've gone other places and got promoted, right, in society. But I'm sure that most of us couldn't go to their country, right, and just because we have some economic power, get ourselves placed on these things, and because we can make a little donation to go buy some land from some poor Northsider who, really needs to divide the ownership, but can't. Well, they can now after 2016, because I eventually got the law changed where you can divide estate property now for ownership purposes. But again, the government changed the law in 2016, did nothing about it. And I got proof of that because recently I had reason to divide a piece of our family lot, right, for ownership purposes, right? And when I go to the survey man, I say, no, you can't do that. You got to go through planning. No, I don't go through planning. So I went down to Delhi, got in the law, carried it back for it. Oh, he said, this is great, man. This is great. I got a lot of clients people that can benefit from this. When he went to Lands and Survey, they had done nothing about it in that 4 years. You know? Nothing. And you know the reason for that is because it took me all day arguing with them in the committee room that was something that we needed to do for Caymanians, right? But they didn't want it done. And because they didn't want it done, they done absolutely nothing about it, right? Then when they did try to make up the rules, they apparently made some things that if it wasn't the product of a probate of a will, right? You couldn't include it, So I had to fight them on that. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'm eventually getting there, right? But these are the kind of hurdles, right, that we put in front of our own Caymanian people for them to enjoy their own country.
Mr. After we come back from this break, you talk about the erosion of institutions, and public or private, whether they're professional association or even ones created by Act of Parliament. Let's talk about that, because I think there is something to speak to what future governance will look like and future stability. We're speaking to a former MP for Northside, Mr. Ezra Miller, and the phone lines are available if you want to call 949-8037 or toll free with the compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-TALK. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Subway makes it easy for you to stay on top of your health and wellness goals with our Fresh Fit menu options. Choose from 5 Fresh Fit Subway sandwiches with only 450 calories or less per 6-inch sub. Turkey breast, veggie, oven-roasted chicken, Black Forest ham, sweet onion chicken teriyaki, or make your 6-inch Fresh Fit sub into a salad or wrap prepared with fresh vegetables. For a full menu and nutritional information, visit subway.ky. Subway. Eat fresh.
Thinking of getting a hybrid but don't know much about them? Vamp Motors has 3 great reasons why you should own the Toyota CHR. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries while being driven. So there's no need to plug in a hybrid, making it both economical and fun to drive. And you don't have to replace your battery every 2 years. The CHR Hybrid is reliable, providing up to 1 million kilometers on the same battery and engine. Oh, and now you can save $2,000 off the Toyota CHR, starting at only $33,500.
That's way more than 3 reasons.
True, but the best one is that it's on sale now. Test drive the Toyota CHR today at Vamp Motors, Walkers Road, while stocks last.
It was Thursday, February 23rd, 1905, that Rotary was born. The vision of one-man Paul Harris. Thereafter, Rotary mushroomed beyond the Chicago club of 4 professional men from diverse backgrounds. Today, Rotary is the epitome of humanitarian service above self. Dynamic, active, effective. A global instrument in pursuit of peace. Working to resolve some of the world's most challenging problems. Indeed, Rotary helped to decide the United Nations Charter back in 1945. Rotary works to eradicate dreaded diseases. Today, we are steps away from a polio-free world. Rotary, fueling human development through varied and numerous global initiatives. Happy birthday, Rotary. 117 years of commitment to bettering humanity. From the Rotary and Rotaract families of the Cayman Islands, Rotary serves to change lives.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Wave your country flag, sport your favorite jersey, show off that national costume, or channel your inner majesty with a salute to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. It's Dress for Culture Day with a Majesty theme, Friday, March 11th, brought to you by the Cultural Foundation as part of K-Fest 2022. Celebrate Cayman's cultural melting pot with a Dress Down fundraiser, open to schools, businesses, and individuals for donations of just $5 for adults, $3 for students. Visit artscayman.org for more information.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office. Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us, and thanks too to Mr. Ezra Miller for sharing with us. And if I might, I certainly want to defer to you in many ways, but I also want to show great deference in that, not just of your parliamentary experience. And you forgive me, you're 1 or 2 years my senior, so you forgive me for being
I gotta be careful. My tree score in 10 years is up in July.
Yeah, but the notion is that as a people, we've always been respectful of people generally, people who have demonstrated their competence, people who've also demonstrated that they have not just expertise but experience. And I think we could benefit, it would behoove us to actually listen. That's one of the reasons I appreciate you always making yourself available. And through this we'll learn. We look at, just as a casual comment in passing, the attempts at the youth parliament and to bring people through. It's a wonderful exercise if young Caymanian children would take up the mantle and appreciate it, because it may not only mean future parliamentarians, but children who take up leadership roles in organizations, whether they're voluntary or otherwise. And that gives us
but
a
I
chance.
mean, let's take youth parliament. But why we only have one little session a year?
And
why aren't we when we set up the youth parliament? Why don't we keep it in place for a year? And when we are discussing legislation, send it to them. Right? Let them have a debate about it down in the alley. Right?
And why is it only a few children?
Well, and again, I have often queried the selection process. Okay. I tried very hard to make the youth parliament exact to that, to say, look, this is something, we've elected this parliament now, let's keep it in place for the whole year, right? And every time we have a issue of national importance, whether or whatever, in a legislation that we bring in, offer them the opportunity to come down here after school, 2 units a week or 3 units a week, debate the subject, because it would be informative to hear what their views are, because that's who we're supposed to be legislating for. You grew up in an era like me, right? We knew that the Legislative Assembly was going to meet 4 times a year. Right?
Set the clock right now.
February, June, September, November. February we did the throne speech. June was usually reserved for the financial industrial legislation if anything was coming down for them. September we did other general legislation. And November was the budget. All the people, my age group and older, listened to Radio Cayman every night. You couldn't go to a house, right, when Parliament was sitting, that Radio Cayman wasn't on listening to that broadcast. Right? Most of us had no idea. I, as a sitting member of Parliament, had no idea when the next meeting was going to be. It was always adjourned silent day, right? We could not, as 19 people, sit down in the month of January and decide we were going to have X number of meetings of Parliament on particular days, so we could publish it and the public would be aware. Plenty of people say to me, well, you all met in Parliament last week. Yeah. Man, I always like to listen, but you don't know. That's the kind of erosion I'm talking about, because what we're doing there is we are reducing the value of parliamentary debate in the minds of our people because they don't hear it.
So let me ask then 2 things, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because some of us, not all of us, some of us have on our calendar, annual reminder, quarterly reminder. Those are things that are important, right? And that helps us to, in our minds, to be efficient and so on. But from the little we know, are there standing committees of the House that do things?
But again, they meet? I mean, for the last 4 years when I was there, the only standing committee that I was aware that met or that ever tabled a report, and every standing committee of the Legislative Assembly is supposed to have meetings and supposed to table an annual report before the House is prorogued each year and called back, right? And the only one that I am aware that was doing it was the Public Accounts Committee. And we have other important committees of the House. I mean, I'm not aware that the Privileges Committee, for instance, and we've had quite a few reasons that should be meeting, right, has met in the last 8 years. Right? So what I'm saying is that I think we have done a reasonably good job as a country in that various governments have put legislation in place, right, to provide some of these checks and balances and to provide some elements. The FOI legislation and all that kind of stuff was timely, but again, it's just every time you turn around, it's being eroded back a little bit. Being eroded back. It's like the Cayman Protection Law. Cayman Protection Law, how it was written in 1972 by Mr. Benson and others, was a good piece of legislation. But it's nothing now. We allow, and again, most parliamentarians don't get up tomorrow and say, well, which law do I want changed tomorrow, right? Those changes come from the people who will benefit from those changes by lobbying the government.
Right. Mr. Ezra, I wanted to ask maybe 2 things just from what you shared. The first one, let's look at the parliamentary thing and the idea that you said, we have, other than the Public Accounts Committee the other important standing committees may or may not meet. We don't know. They're not tabled as they seemingly are expected and required, right? But what about the use of parliamentarians' time and the expectations either that they have of themselves in their office or us, voter, benefactor, puppet master, whatever that we sort of have of the parliamentarians, so that time, from sunrise to sunset, for argument's sake, that the parliamentarian has in a day isn't utilized as efficiently, effectively because of being pulled hither and thither. Is that part of the thing, the expectations and utilization of time?
Well, I have witnessed the erosion of the use of parliamentarians' time and the respect for some of it brought on by parliamentarians themselves. Don't misunderstand.
Yes, sir.
We as parliamentarians are not blameless in this erosion, but I give you two facts. Every time Sir Vassal was going to deliver the budget address, every bank manager, whether commercial bank, private bank, or trust, was in the gallery to listen to the budget. All the senior partners of the law firms was in the gallery to listen to the budget. Many of the influential business people were in the gallery to witness and hear it. Some of that was I will concede, was in their own interest because they wanted to know if there was any taxation being brought and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, we present the budget and there's nobody in the gallery. Granted, we have other means of communication, we have this now on TV and all that sort of stuff, right? And then, when I first got elected, people would come to you for advice to solve a problem. By the time I was forcibly retired in 2021 by losing the election, nobody had an interest in having a discussion or input into a process that they were using to solve a problem. They wanted government to provide the solution, the resources, and implement the solution for them. And in other words, what I'm saying is that the definition of help by your representative drastically changed over my 40 years in the political arena, right? And it has now gone down to basically what are the material things I'm going to get, right? If I need a roll to fill, I think that MLA should call somebody and tell them, give me a roll with fill, free, right? If I want to go Miami shopping, I think the MLA should buy my ticket and provide me with shopping money, right? Not a question now, Mr. Ezra, I, as an MLA, I finished school, I'm trying to get a job, can you help me? No, you need to find me a job, right?
Where the reference man get go to work for me too?
No reference business,
Yeah.
You need to call somebody and tell them, give me a job. But most of them, they look at a job and look no work, Two different things, right? And I find that disconcerting. But again, it is because parliamentarians cultivated that change. And the way to stay elected in Cayman now is simply by buying the vote every day, every week, every month, every year of that person. By giving them donations or getting things for them,
Dependency almost, huh?
Yeah, and many of the parliamentarians brag about it. They do something for somebody. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's in the newspaper, the pictures, everything else. Everybody will tell you that there's never done nothing about it, right? Now, nothing could be further from the truth. But my mother raised me in a cultural environment that I must help all the people I could as often as I could. But I mustn't be, her words, I mustn't be braggadocious about it, right? And if I did something for Mr. Sterling, that was between me and Mr. Sterling. I had many political advisors who tell me, well, you know, this time get you reelected, that's fine. But if somebody has hardship and they are willing to come to me to get help and demonstrate the need for the help, and I help them, I should not insult their dignity then by putting it on Facebook and, you know.
Yeah. Respect, man. For respect. All right. I think we got a news break. And when we come back, Mr. Etzert, I want to ask you some of your references about Caymanians and opportunities and the like. And if you cannot, you know, make it here and succeed here, the expectations of the places. And specifically, you'll guide me a comment that I heard someone say recently that has kind of thinking to the indication that it's almost an afterthought. The things that are done in this country should be to the benefit of the people of the country. I thought, well, so maybe we can talk about that a bit as we continue looking at these erosions. I'm going to pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Government reported updated COVID-19 results for the week. The Public Health Department now says there were 64 cases logged on Tuesday and 44 on Wednesday. 8 patients are currently hospitalized for COVID-related causes, and of these, 6 are unvaccinated. In international news, a defiant Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has urged European countries to do more to help as he urged his citizens to resist Russian invasion. The second day of fighting saw tanks enter the capital for the first time. Ukrainian officials said they have handed out 18,000 guns to volunteers, as well as issuing instructions on how to make petrol bombs. Russia is continuing its assault from the north, south, and east. Meanwhile, British Airways has suspended its flights to Moscow after Russia banned all UK carriers from its airspace. Russia's Federal Agency for Air Transport said in a statement Friday that it was banning UK-registered flights as well as aircraft owned, leased, or operated by a person associated with the United Kingdom from transiting the country's airspace. The Russian agency said the measure was taken in response to the decision by the UK government Thursday to ban the airlines from British airspace. That was part of a package of sanctions announced by Prime Minister Boris Johnson after Russia invaded Ukraine. And U.S. President Joe Biden has nominated Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court, calling her one of the nation's brightest legal minds. She will be the first black woman to serve in the court's 232-year history, if confirmed. She would replace liberal Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer when he retires at the end of the court's term in June. Those are your latest headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Linton Nathaniel Tibbetts, 1923 to 2011. Linton Tibbetts was known throughout the Cayman Islands not only as a successful businessman, but as one who showed great interest in his homeland and invested time, money, and influence to help the welfare of his beloved sister islands. In the late 1960s, he organized the first annual Cayman Picnic, still held each July in the Tampa-St. Petersburg area, to bring together the many Caymanians living in the United States and encourage them to remember their roots. In 1972, Mr. Linton and several other successful Brackers started an air service between Florida and Cayman Brac to bolster the sister islands' embryonic tourism industry. The air service was later expanded to serve all 3 islands with a fleet of 7 planes. He built hotels and museums on both sister islands and was involved in establishing Cayman Brac Power and Light Company. Although his career was primarily devoted to operating his chain of building supply stores in Florida, he always visited the islands frequently and maintained close ties with his family and friends in Cayman. Mr. Linton and his wife Pauline, Miss Polly Nee Inix, had 4 children.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Attention, Frank Sound and Northside commercial farmers. The Department of Agriculture Land Clearing Equipment Service is available if you are in need of land clearing. Applications can be collected from DOA Sales Office or downloaded from www.doa.gov.ky under agronomy/bulldozer policy. Completed applications are due by March 4th. For more information, email ciagriculture@gov.ky or call 947-3090.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And if you wish to ask a question, pose a comment, seek clarification, or just add to our conversation, well, 949-8037, toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. Former MP for Northside, Mr. Ezra Miller. And I'm mindful how I say this because one, I don't want to not only offend you and the parliamentary process or anybody else, but to be seen otherwise. But I've always had this view, and if it's wrong now, you or anybody else can publicly correct me. When we have people of expertise who've had experience, especially our own, we should draw on them. And if they've left their office because it was no longer something that they wish to remain in, they've retired after so many years, whatever that is, we don't put them out to pasture, we draw on them. They have some.
should.
Well, I honestly believe that. Take for instance, right? If you've publicly said this, your father, your grandfather, you've got that history of craftsmen, and to see my brother sometimes pick up the tools my father had and to use them from the bracing bit to otherwise. I can touch them and know what they are, but I wouldn't use them to the same skill and dexterity as they do. But you do the same, right? That's not just the legacy that you carry on. That's a skill set that may inspire future generations, right? But even to know what this thing is and to know how we would use it and go. We always talk about getting ads, but how many people understand that? So with that in mind, we should, you, Mr. Benson, Mr. Norman, many others, right? Let's draw on them. But
I think the political arena in Cayman has become so personal and so vitriolic that that's absolutely eliminated.
Wow.
Now, like I said, I am retired from politics.
And yet I offer you to stay.
And I'm going to stay out, right? But I took the time. This is my country.
Yes, sir.
So I made the effort. I took the time and effort. And had a meeting with the Premier and Deputy Premier and said, listen, I'm done with politics. However, this is my country. I would like to contribute if I can, so if you all need me to chair a board or to do chair a committee to do a specific job or something like that, I'm available and I'm willing. But there are those in their group, right, who can't see part beyond the personal stuff, right? So they have not asked me to do anything. And well, I guess I must correct that. They asked me to do one day. Okay. They called me and asked me if I would be chairman of the Cayman Status and Permanent Residence Board. And I'm an honest man. I said, I can't do that. Well, why? My public position on Cayman Status for the last 10 years in this country is Cayman Status must only be available through two ways, marriage and descent. Now, if I take the chairmanship of that board, any decision, anybody that I turn around would automatically have the right to appeal because of my predetermined position, right? So I said, I can't set the government up like that, because we don't only have to be honest, we have to be realistic about things, right? Mm-hmm. And I've always said that my honesty goes beyond you not putting pocket money in my pocket. There are many other things that you can be dishonest about beyond money. Mm. But what it does is it eliminates the country from having the benefit of that experience and expertise, right? And so I see the current government making mistakes that if people like me were around, we could say, no, you can't really do that, You got to do it this way. This is what the law. And that comes from experience, right? Yeah. And knowledge, because 1 year your experience can be 10 years, but it can be 1 year 10 times, or 10 years of experience. They're two different things, right? But again, because we have eroded these institutions that are supposed to be providing the checks and balances and the direction for the country, nobody questions it, nobody says anything, And that's where we are, and the country is going to be worse off for it,
right? So with that in mind, and sometimes, if I'll be forgiven, because increasingly I'm looking at some of the comments and recognizing that they are my personal public comments, right? Some people say, boy, you should do more of that, but it's not my ethos. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, you can hold account. But if we take what you say and recognize that if we don't draw on that, then not only are we doing ourselves and our country and future generations a disservice, but the missteps we make now are irreversible, are probably so costly that even undo may be untenable.
I mean, if I was in the Parliament, I would not be proud of the fact that we approved a $1 billion budget in 3 days in Finance Committee, right?
But I could, okay.
Because I can tell you that if I was there, I'd look briefly at the documents, and there are plenty of questions to ask. Plenty of questions to ask. But again, that seems to be, when I entered politics with people like Mr. Benson and Jim Borden and Haig and Captain Charles and Sir Wassel and Mr. Norman, them, right? The debate in the Legislative Assembly oftentimes generated changes to the legislation for the betterment of Cayman. Mm-hmm. While they might not have admitted it publicly on the floor, when we went into the little room to get our one chicken leg for lunch each, we agreed that that's what we needed to do. We did what was best for Cayman. Right. Now it's we seem to believe that if a bill sails through Parliament with no debate, it's good. Okay. But it is so bad that we got to bring it back at the very next sitting to amend it because it can't work. Simply because it did not go through the kind of scrutiny and public debate where people could hear. I'm not genius. Many of the changes I made to legislation was as a result of either I had a public meeting about it and people came to the meeting, or people heard about the meeting and called me and made recommendations. Right? The 25 changes that I managed to get to the new education law None of those changes came from me. I set up a meeting, and I had a public meeting, and out of that public meeting, we set up a committee of all the people in my constituency who were involved in education.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down and went through the bill clause by clause by clause by clause. What they didn't understand about the legal side of it, I tried to explain it to them. What I didn't understand about the implications in education and the educating of our young people, and that's how those kind of things were generated.
Collaborative effort.
You know, and those days we had the select committee process, which everything was debated.
Right. We do have a couple of callers on the line, Mr. Ezzard. We're speaking to a former parliamentarian. Well, once a parliamentarian like an Olympian, always a parliamentarian like an Olympian. Let's go to the phone, sir. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, Gwen. Am I on?
You are. Welcome.
Billy Sinamba here. Good afternoon to both of you, but especially good afternoon to Mr. Ezzard Miller. It's good to see him again, getting engaged in issues affecting Cayman. Now, every time Mr. Miller is on and he talks about legislation, I really come alive because let me first of all embarrass him in a nice way.
Well, I read his book. I read both books, and I learned a lot. I must tell you that I stole a lot of your ideas on your books.
Well, I'm totally humbled by that because that was the intention. You know?
Yeah.
Well, so you see, I mean, you are one of the people in the Cayman Islands who not just understands issues but can articulate them and actually has tried to do certain things which I think would have resulted in some fundamental changes. But of course, you can never do this if there's only a few of you who believe that. We hope that, you can convince more people. You see, you spoke about the dates of sitting. And I remember we engaged a little bit on this way back, on Ozzy's show when I called in.
Yeah.
In every Commonwealth jurisdiction, a major Commonwealth jurisdiction, they always want to make sure that at the beginning of the year, or actually they do it at the end of the preceding year, there is a committee which sits down and says, when is Parliament going to sit? They map it out up to a daily level to say, okay, from this date to that level. And they even go in some jurisdictions so far as to say the sitting on the 15th of June will be a long sitting. It will end at 10 o'clock rather than 4 o'clock and so on. And to me, that gives the importance that is attached to that. And it also eliminates sittings of Parliament being used in the political game,
Right.
Those kinds of things. And then you spoke very quickly, you spoke about annual reports. Annual reports are very important to the committees of Parliament because what they do is when you write the annual reports and they are concluded, those annual reports then go back to the executive. They now guide the chief officers and the ministers regarding what they can expect when they present reports to these committees. And even as a drafter, in jurisdictions where I've worked where the annual reports are done for every committee, not just for PAC, we would look at them and say, hey, look, we can't write a piece of regulation like this because the last time the Committee on Delegated Legislation said they didn't want provisions that are giving too much discretion to ministers and so on. And so it would guide everybody in government. Now, let me try to end on a point that you raised, Dwayne, regarding how some people are not used who have retired in Cayman. Now, to me, I think that criticism also extends to people you have invited to Cayman. I came to Cayman and made it my second home. And I was told, well, you want to apply for PR? Yes. What can you bring to Cayman? I said, well, I have got very good experience, not just in writing legislation, but training people on how to scrutinize bills, how a legislative process works, how you ensure that as a chief officer you avoid judicial review as much as possible. And I told them, yes, I've got training in the UK, in the Canada, and I told them I've written all these peer-reviewed articles in Oxford and Cambridge and so on. And when I came and I developed the courses to help people do that, I was told you can't teach it. And the reason, and the thing that irked me was that the people who told me that were not so much Caymanians, were people who came to Cayman the way I did. And as a result, I felt a little bit disappointed. But I'm not complaining because I'm not a Caymanian. I'm just saying that I'm disappointed that I've been unable to share this knowledge with people who want to learn. The Caymanians I associate with, they understand this and they say we want to learn this, but the people in power don't want that to be helped.
Because they don't want any scrutiny or second guessing of what they want done. That's the whole problem.
And that's the whole problem. And I think what should happen is that there should be somebody from the Cayman side to say, we want our people to be able to learn this. See, the people who don't want that are people usually certain people in Cayman together with some handlers who don't want that. But there should be enough of a fight from the other side to say we want to learn how to do this. And I hope that this conversation can continue. I think there's a lot of things that need to be reformed on the legislative and the executive side. And it's good that you're talking about it today. I thank you for your time.
Okay,
thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. I mean, the other aspect about knowing when LA is meeting, I don't understand how the ministers today and the chief officers in particular organize their time. In the day when I was in the executive council, we called it, you could not bring a bill to the Legislative Assembly unless it had gone to cabinet at least 4 or 5 times, right? And so you had to be involved in that process, right? I have asked recently in the LA, well, what brought you to this point? What made you believe that removing the ability of Caymanians to add 10% onto the house without planning permission is a good thing, right? And what is the rationale behind it? And they struggle to explain the process to you. And I just think that because we don't involve the public. Now, like I said, those people who come here and want to promote the changes in legislation for their own benefit have no problem. They invite you to dinner, they invite you and give you the best wine and everything else, and they go invite you to their board rooms, and they want to talk to you, and they want to influence you to do this, to do that, right? But what they don't want is when they have raised this issue with you to say, well, I need to take this to the people that is going to affect, right? Which are my people, whether negative or positive. No, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that, right? But I again, was one of those politicians who really believed that the people I represented and the wider general public had an inherent right to be involved and to participate. You heard me using my little buzzword, participate with democracy, right? In whatever I was doing for the country or for the community, right?
Right. We do have a caller online, but I want to come back to that idea at some point. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, young man, and good afternoon to my dear friend Ezard. It is so good to hear you again.
Good afternoon, Mom.
To me, Dwayne.
Yes, Mom.
You need to get him on our radio much more, and also Mr. Arden as well.
Well, I will try it for Mr. Arden, but I appreciate you emphasizing young man and then Mr. Ezard. So I thank you. You made our weekend.
Listen to me. I don't know what his Sterling doing to me, Mom, but every now and again he lets the chair down. I can't see the mic. I have to change chairs.
His chair's gone. There's 2 chairs now. Let me get another one for you. So, but while he adjusts the chair, I will again.
No, it's good to hear from you too, dear. Really.
Thank you so much, and I wish you well, and I wish that you were still one of our leaders. I know you still give good advice and all that, and I had some friends to call me and say, you know who could be on today. You better call in. You better call in. Anyway, it's just like your last caller said, which I think is Mr. Billy. That he wanted to give the Caymanians his knowledge, and there were some that wanted to hear and to be taught. But it is similar to some people that come in here. I can only talk about tourism because that is in my blood. And our managers, and some got the president or chairperson job of CITA, and yet they make the people of Cayman believe that, or some of them believe that, they're the one that brought in tourism into this island, and not
it started. They believe it started in 2010. When they came to Cayman. You and I know different.
I know different. I worked at LaFontaine, at Galleon Beach, and some of them don't even know those places even exist. But yet they can hire and fire the Caymanians and bring in who they want, and they can tell. After 2 days of being here, they can tell Caymanians that are trained and has worked and has built homes offer tourism how it should go and where it should go and whatnot. But that was one of my reasons, and to say hello and welcome again to Radio Cayman Ezert. You're a good person, and I ask God to give you and your family health and strength that you can go on telling us and teaching us information that we may not even hear. I think we do have some in the government that means well by us. There's a lot of promises made, and there is some good people in government, but we still need people like you and Mr. Arden. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. God bless you. And God bless that young man there, the U.S. too.
Amen.
Okay, all right.
Amen.
God bless you all too. Good to hear from you. Yep.
Thank you.
God bless you. And
you see, those are the kind of people that they are the salt of Cayman. And she is well aware that there were a time in part of how we succeed in building Cayman was because we welcome people like Mr. Billy and people who could add something to our society, and who became a part of us and wanted to add something to the society, not just to take advantage and move on. But what we get now is more of the latter than the former.
With that in mind, because I'm very cognizant of this and very deliberate in saying, I do recognize in saying this that people say, oh, you're naive. And that is, maybe the case, right? But I think it's a noble endeavor. How do we bring more of us to the table so that we appreciate that we have come from different walks of life, we offer different skill sets. But if we live and work here, and if our period of residency is only for 6 months of the year, or we want to live here forever and then eventually maybe retire somewhere else and some part here, irrespective, right, with generation otherwise, how do we get to that space of unifying our society? And I ask that seeing the very visible division that is seemingly occurring in our developments, from the prices offered by things to the physical erection of, I call them impediments, we call them gated communities. Not trying to be inflammatory nor disrespectful, but if access to what you thought was the beach, free and unfeathered, is being blocked, hindered, deliberately or unconsciously because of construction, overgrown vegetation, or someone maliciously erecting a gate, your access at that point in time until it's addressed is impeded. You can't get to it. If it's so these things are occurring, and if they are and they're not being acknowledged and addressed, we're going to soon find our society, just like many other examples, divided along whatever line: economics, ethnicity, color, creed, nationality. That's not impossible. No, that's not to scare people, but is that what is happening? And if so, can that be addressed and changed for the better?
I'm not so sure it can be done. I believe that the horse is too far from the barn gate now.
Wow.
And because when I talk to young people who I would like to see get inspired by into politics and stuff like that for the right reasons.
Yes, sir.
It's hard to in this environment to convince them that politics and your involvement in that should really be for an altruistic reason.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be because you have an opportunity to control, And the people that we have allowed to come in here and usurp our authority on many of the things that built Cayman are not going to give that up easily.
Mm.
The other side of the coin, and they're the ones now that have the resources to perpetuate their position.
Mm.
And for you to take them on as I tried to do, you come up against a financial barriers in ways that you can't even imagine,
mm-hmm.
right? And you don't have heroes, if I could use that word in its broadest sense,
mm-hmm.
that you can point to who participated in the process but was not solely for their aggrandizement and benefit, right?
Yeah.
Hard to find those kind of people around now that you can point to and say, look, these are the people that laid the way for us, right? The Leonard E. Bankses, the Harry Chisholms, and on the women's side, the Edna Carters, the Len Whitakers, those kind of people,
mm-hmm.
Who were out there in the society, just quietly doing what was best for Cayman and Caymanians.
There were examples, though.
Right, and I don't know anywhere, and I have been trying desperately to find a place that did, that the natives lost as much economic control
and
therefore political control as Caymanians have lost in Cayman, that got it back without bloodshed and suffering.
All right.
And I think that mine and your generation were tolerant. We were satisfied to work on honest days for an honest day pay and try to build our nest egg over time. Some of these young generation coming up, and I'm not talking about the criminal element now, I'm talking about the people who have ambitions and who are willing to work to fulfill those goals and ambitions, are not going to be so calm and tolerant of these impediments, as you call them, that are placed before them. They are going to find ways to get around them or get through them. And I see our society, and listening to the latest population statistics is even more frightening.
Yeah.
Where what we are doing is we are driving the middle class Caymanians down into the low class.
Economically, yeah.
And we are jacking up as opposed to raising up a few of the Caymanians in order to try to delay a negative reaction from the ones that we are depressing, right? Because when they talk to some of their peers who are being jacked up for the wrong reasons, not always based on competence and commitment and hard work and honesty and integrity. Mind, don't misunderstand me. There are some Caymanians who make it doing all of those things. But I'm talking about the majority of the people. Even in the civil service, if you look at the kind of people that are getting promoted in the civil service, it is not always the most competent. Or let me put it another way. Many of the competent civil servants who should be promoted are being eliminated because they stand up for right.
So, kisses go with fear, as your mother would say, right? All right, let's pause to take this break. We want to invite the caller as we return. Continue discussion with Mr. Ezzard. Please stay tuned.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Babes to Teens is having a store-wide clearance sale from Friday, 18th February to Saturday, February 26th. Items as low as $5. Dresses from $15 to $20. Shoes under $10. Tops, pants, and baby items all under $10. Plus 20% off on all clothing. Babes to Teens is making room for new stock. So catch these great deals before they're all gone. Babes to Teens, number 8, Plaza Venetia, North Sound Way. Telephone 946-8157. Open Monday to Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Babes to Teens. Find out about all the community happenings from nonprofit, community fundraisers, church events, and more with Radio Cayman's Community Bulletin Board 3 times daily. Don't be the one to miss out on the latest information for events taking place every day on all 3 islands. Radio Cayman's Bulletin Board, brought to you by GNC, conveniently located in Queens Court, 7 Mile Beach, and Countryside Shopping Center. GNC, more than sports, all fitness, mind and body. Also brought to you by UCCI. Visit www.ucci.edu.ky. Choose your dream and blaze your trail today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks, too, to Mr. Ezra Miller for sharing some time with us. So we do have a couple of calls online. We thank our callers for listening and joining, and hopefully through discussion, dialogue, and some discourse, it may be a difference of opinion, but it's a healthy respect as we come to consensus. Hey, good afternoon, and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, ma'am. How are you today?
Pretty good. Mr. Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy to hear your voice. I just got in my car, actually. School closed half day today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Miller, I was just saying just a couple of weeks ago, how come you cannot hear anything from you guys? Someone said to me, Oh, what you want to hear from them for? They ain't in the government. But I said that's beside the point. Because this is what you need to do, what you're doing right now. You all need to, keep in touch with us. You can't wait until it's time for election and come out here and run for 3 to 6 weeks and expect us to give votes to people. You understand? You need to continue to be with the community. And I'm not saying you're not with your people in North Sinai. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what you're doing. But what I'm just saying is those, you and all your other colleagues that was in the government, you all need to come on air and talk to the people of the island. And I applaud you this afternoon for coming on the radio. You need to come more often. Because like you say, I think there's going to be a revolution sooner or later. Because they're not looking good.
Well, there can be, and it can be one where it's, without violence. This for sure.
No, but I think that there is some deference due that most parliamentarians pay when they lose an election, is they give the person that the people have chosen over them a chance to succeed and to lay their path or how they want to do, And I think it's important to respect the choice of the people and to say, well, let's see what they're going to do,
Right.
Because you don't want to put yourself in a position where they can simply say, well, we continue to blame you. I tell everybody, they can't believe us or not now.
Right. But thank you, Mom, for sharing that. And respectfully, we'll join the other caller. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good evening, Mr. Miller. How are you, sir?
I am very fine, sir. How are you?
That's a big question. Good evening, young boy.
Evening, sir. How are you doing?
Good. You think you're young?
Well, listen. Is it what's that Calypso song? Age is just a number. Come now. I might sing that well, but I know the lyrics, huh?
Mr. Sterling, read that singing alone, man.
Hey, listen. They say make a joyful noise.
Yeah.
Sing.
He didn't say sing.
Good evening, Mr. Miller. I'm glad to hear you join in with my other friend that just call in. And don't give up. Still do what you're doing. Mr. Miller, I put out a warrant last week for you because I need to see you. Right? You know that I was a bailiff. You know that I was a police officer. So you cannot run too long.
Yeah.
I need to get hold. It's very important, sir.
Okay.
I don't have your number.
Okay, well, let me give you my number now, and you can call me this afternoon sometime. 327-5757, because I don't believe I have your number now.
Go slow. Wait 1 minute. All right.
327
57
57
5 7 5 7.
If you can't remember this way. A 1957 327 Corvette 6-pack with 57,000 miles.
Okay. Man, I'll be careful how you joke your number, because it might be wanted,
Well, I don't worry about that. If I'm wanted now, if I am wanted, I made sure all my political career be for good things, not bad things. I really not worried about anybody coming looking after me for warrants for things I did,
Mr. Miller, very a quick question, and then I'll hang up. What is your views on those beautiful 20-story buildings that is planned to be built out on the waterfront out there?
But I don't support none of that. I don't. Listen to me. I don't support any investor coming to the Cayman Islands to tell us what to do. I can tell you a story about you. You remember Mr. Dudley McLaughlin, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, one time, me and my brother was talking to him down at Delaware gas station, and we had this gentleman there from Arizona, and the gentleman proceeded to spend about half hour telling him all the things he could do to improve his revenue in the gas station and all this, right? And when you know how Mr. Dudley used to sit down there with the arms crossed, right? He didn't move when he left. He looked at me and Jerris and he said, that's what I can't stand, Man come here from mountain top more and tell me how to live on flat land.
Yeah.
Right? But and these people come here and make these preposterous proposals because they see some economic advantage for themselves. That should be left to us.
I just drove through South Sound. I was going 5 miles an hour because every car will come behind me was blowing me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what we're doing? I was observing those big sacks of cement. They're all on the front. These people do not remember Hurricane Ivan.
No. They don't care, they got insurance.
But why is planning giving these people permission? Is it the money or why it is? Because from time...
But usually that's what's driving the decision in one form or another.
Mr. Ezra, from time I had tongue, I learned this little song. The foolish man built his house on the sand. That's right?
Yep.
And the wise man built his house where?
On the rock.
No. I didn't learn it that way. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I see it. I never see it. Who will occupy those buildings? Can you tell me?
That's a mystery, my friend.
Because I never see more building in South Sound. And I remember when you remember Alveston.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He used to go in the
Baxter
night.
Pines.
Yeah, he used to go in the night and spare lobsters, you know, with a spare hit in the moonlight.
Yep.
You know, if all those people would come back to this island, I mean, South Sound looked like Miami Beach.
Yep.
Who go occupy them buildings? And I know they can't say they came and got money.
I would rephrase that and say that there's plenty of money passing through Cayman.
You have a very good evening, sir.
You too. Yeah, man. Call me this evening and we can talk. All right?
Yes,
okay, man.
All right. Thanks very much. But Mr. Ezra, with that, I mean, well, you take us where you want to go. But we were chatting earlier, and with all that is happening, maybe after the break, if you can, the issue the last call is raised to development, the concept of potentially the erosion of institutions and the, as you put it, the notion for voters specifically to become more active, engaged, informed, and involved. And then with the early numbers from the census painting a picture. So the population growth, the demographics, the statistical analysis that should come. Maybe some thoughts on that altogether? All right. We asked a lot of Mr. Ezra, but we know that God tells us, He'll give us more than we can bear. It's a man with broad shoulders, strong intellect, and a resounding voice. So let's hear his comments. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the eastern districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments until February 17th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.porterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020. The National Cultural Foundation presents Red Sky Marketplace, your chance to support Cayman's artists and artisans and buy local. This Saturday, February 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. inside the Hawkwill Theatre. Admission is free. Visit over a dozen booths featuring photography, paintings, sculptures, jewelry, ceramics, furniture, home and beauty accessories, and more. Check out the CNCF Facebook and Instagram pages at Cayman Culture for more information. The chairman of the Liquor Licensing Board would like to remind liquor license holders in the bar and nightclub categories that there is to be no music and or no dance permitted on Sundays. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service will be monitoring all businesses to ensure that they are following the requirements and conditions on their licenses. Non-compliant businesses could result in prosecution or the non-renewal of licenses. For more details, please contact the Department of Commerce and Investment on 244-2287, 244-6677, or email enforcement@dci.gov.ky.
As seniors, we owe it to each other to stay safe and healthy through this pandemic. Let's make sure that our COVID-19 vaccinations are up to date, including getting boosters, and be aware of your surroundings so that we can manage the conditions that make us more vulnerable. Remember, we're in this together, so do your part. Get boosted. You can visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus to learn some more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks very much for all the calls. If you want to be a part of the discussion, 949-8037. Toll free with the compliments of flow is the option as well. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037. Mr. Ezra Miller sits with us, and I think as the callers have shared very lovingly, respectfully, and publicly, we can benefit from your counsel, your expertise. I'm hopeful that the rest of us, from the parliamentarians, past and present, and to the voters and all alike, that we don't see this as anything other than a discussion that could be instructive and informative. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Ezra, unless there was something else that you wanted to share, I wanted to maybe come back to a couple of things in relation to where we are at this time. We just completed a census. We've seen the government put out some preliminary numbers. I'm hoping that as they come out, there'll be whatever it is, just not no edited version. I'm not saying that there is, but and then more importantly, as a country, we'll look at it and start to discuss it, distill it, make some sense of it, and just not ignore it. But that's where a country needs to be involved. We don't seem to get so.
Well, you see, again, we need people in leadership position to be brave enough now when these census statistics come out to be honest about it.
Okay.
And not just accept that the economy is growing so fast that Caymanians have to be outnumbered. I don't necessarily promote or support controlled growth, where growth is controlled by a couple of people, creating oligarchs or stuff like that. Yeah. But I think that what is missing from the economic and political scene in Cayman now is any form of short-term, medium-term, or long-term planning. Mm-hmm. And we need people now, when they see these numbers come out, which apparently is going to prove that Caymanians, before it was we were kind of satisfied that it was, we were 1% more than them, right? Although they were equal, and because of their economic power, they were more equal than us. But some of the preliminary numbers I've seen, it should be concerning to the average Caymanian, both generational Caymanians and new Caymanians. And what we need now is to have some in-depth analysis of how this kind of economic control, unfettered growth at whatever rate it is, because simply we're getting money into the treasury and we can solve the social problem by just throwing money at it, right? But we sit down and have some intellectual discourse about, well, what are the social fallouts about it? I tell everybody, I can go to any library at any university anywhere in the world, and there will be shelves, if not sections, on the economic and social consequences of unemployment. Right? Mm-hmm. You would be hard-pressed and lucky if you found a single article written on the social and economic consequences of overemployment, which is what we have in Cayman.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have been promoting for years is I would love to invite some of the economic and social professors from University of the West Indies, since they have a thing at the community college, to come here and do some in-depth analysis of the social problems that overemployment has caused in Cayman. Because what we're seeing from these statistics now, instead of looking at it and saying, okay, well, the only thing we seem to be worried about is we have a couple of Caymanians that are unemployed, right? I mean, there's too many of them to start with, but that's a whole educational and other social issues. But it would be interesting to see, because the reason we have those people on work permit is because we have overemployment in certain sectors, at least.
Yeah,
we can't supply the market,
right?
And we have constantly and deliberately improved the opportunity and eased the pathway for people to come in and provide that those additional resources, while at the same time being allowed to create greater demands for more assistance so they can bring their friends. Yeah. Right? And so we have no planned growth for it, Right. And if we are going to maintain this social harmony, and now in inverted brackets, it used to be, you could say it out loud, in Cayman, and continue to be the place where people want to come to work and raise their families, I think we have to address that, and we need to get into some kind of planning for the development. Our plan is simple now. Somebody arrives from Timbuktu and they got $50 million and they want to put up 400 apartments. Go ahead. Government will get revenue out of this. That's not the point, right? The country does not need the 400 apartments, right? The caller a while ago asked who's going to occupy this concrete jungle in South Sound. Well, you and I both know that the prices that they're being sold, it might be a few Caymanians who can afford it, but the majority can't, right? So we're building it, creating a demand and a market for people to come here, do other investments to bring people to fill in, right? I mean, I've been doing some checking around in Northside since the new year. And if my information is correct, we probably have on the drawing board, if not already planning approval, for a couple of hundred condos in Northside.
In Northside?
Right, yeah. Now, that is the big question there is who are these being built for, even more so than South Sound, because the professionals who come in, you would think that that's where they'd want to go because they're close to work and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And one of the things that we have to guard against is that we don't when we allow these people to come in here and do this kind of development, that we are not depriving our own Caymanians over the long term the ability to have small investments in these areas so that the wealth stays in Cayman and it's circulating in the community. Because these people that are bringing this in, they don't want to do it for one purpose, because they can take more out, right? Or they keep it here as long as there's tax, whatever the benefits are, right? And these are the people that we're providing all these incentives for and all this kind of stuff, And so I'm hoping that we can get a couple of Caymanians who have an interest in looking at this latest census now, right? And trying to get some kind of rational academic discussion about what it means. Because if I live to be the age of my father when he died, right, we will have doubled the population 4, if not 5 times in my lifetime. No country can survive. No country can sustain that kind of growth, right? I mean, I heard this morning that we've had something like a 26% increase. Most countries are happy for a 2-3%. And last year, or it might have been the year before, because time flies. When you get close to your 70. One of the reporters from Radio Cayman was doing an article on the population growth and stuff like that. And I had some suspicions about this stuff, but I decided to dig down into it, right? Mm-hmm. And you would find that prior to 2000, right, we had more Caymanians, whether first multi-generational Caymanians or new Caymanians, children, born here than we were giving out PR and status, right? Where we had the big jump in 2003, which wiped that out. But it has continued since that. When you get up around 2008, 2010 and about there, right, and post that, we are now granting 2 and 3 times Caymanian status and PR than we have people born here, including those who we gave it to in the early 2000s, their children.
Wow.
And again, that kind of imported growth is going to be hard to manage socially. Because it is, I don't care how altruistic these people may pretend to be, that is going to put some serious pressures on the ability for Caymanians to succeed and grow their own wealth in their own country.
All right. With that, let's pause and get to the headlines. When we come back, Mr. Ezra, certainly appreciate your company. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
There's the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Free mulch is available at the National Road NRA stockpile at Poindexter Road Prospect from 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. Residents are invited to come out early and to bring their shovels and bags for the removal of the mulch. Once again, the material will be supplied on a first-come, first-served basis. The DEH is also reminding residents that all temporary sites for collection of vegetative debris are closed to the public. For more, you can get in touch with the DEH on 949-6696. In international news, thousands of Ukrainians crossed into neighboring countries to the west in search of safety as Russia pounded their capital and other cities with airstrikes for a second day. Those arriving were mostly women, children, and the elderly after Ukraine's president on Thursday banned men of military age from leaving the country. At border crossings in Poland, Ukrainians arrived on foot and by car and train, some with their pets, and were greeted with Polish authorities and volunteers offering them food and hot drinks. weeks. Meanwhile, the European Union agreed to freeze the assets of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, along with other sanctions, according to Latvia's foreign minister. A decision to freeze the assets indicates that Western powers are moving toward unprecedented measures to try to stop the brutal invasion of Russia's neighbor and a major war in Europe. And the Stand Your Ground self-defense law had been in effect in Florida for more than 6 years when it became part of the national vocabulary with the death of Trayvon Martin in 2022. When the 17-year-old was fatally shot, Florida was still one of the few states with the law that removes the duty to retreat before using deadly force in the face of danger. Now, upwards of 30 states have some form of the law, and recent research indicates they are associated with more deaths, as many as 700 additional firearm killings each year, according to a study published this week in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Those are your latest headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks very much for joining us. And in the studio, Mr. Ezra Miller sits with us. And as you were sharing, increasingly, Mr. Ezra, we talk about a concept that seemingly in economics wouldn't be plausible, overemployment. We also hear of the concept underemployment. If I'm mistaken,
the only thing can produce underemployment is overemployment, right?
Okay. And the preliminary sort of comments on the census has indicated that there's unemployment amongst Caymanians and unemployment against people who are on work permit. I
never understood that statistic.
Oh, okay.
Because my argument is if you're unemployed, unless you hear transition to a visitor, which does not entitle you to be employed, you should meet your hand.
Right.
Don't give me this argument, but I'm between jobs. The law says if your work permit expires and you want to stay in Cayman, you have to go to the immigration department and become a visitor.
Right.
The law also says that if your immigration designation is a visitor, you cannot apply for a work permit.
Right.
Right. So something is wrong all around.
Yeah.
Right. So those people, instead of being, in my view, instead of being classified as unemployed, should have been put in the visitors category.
Right.
Because there is no facility in the immigration law that allows you on a work permit to remain unemployed in Cayman.
And is this the problem then, that we're not enforcing it? We're not conscious?
The biggest impediment to Caymanian opportunity, progress, and growth as a Caymanian is the unwillingness for the various government agencies to enforce the legislation that was written for them to enforce.
Right.
And but again, some of that goes back to the way the legislation was developed, right? Because if the legislation was developed in a way that everybody participated, the government could not then not provide in the budget the resources to implement the law. But what we do is we write legislation, and if you ask, when the next budget comes, you say, well, where is the money to implement this legislation? Oh, well, we never really got around to that yet, right? But we took all the political credit, right, and the self-aggrandizement for actually bringing the legislation. And don't misunderstand me, bringing the legislation may have been a good thing, but we didn't need to provide the training, the resources, and the checks and balances to ensure that it is being enforced, right? I mean, get back to the standards in public life. Now, many of the people from the private sector were adamant that we had to have standards in public life for politicians, right? And there was no limit to the standards and the requirements and the exposure of your personal affairs that would be acceptable for politicians. Everything had to be known. But as soon as they found out that when they accepted an appointment to a board to which they could get something from, and they had to say what their influences were, then all of a sudden that had come with the law. So what did we do? We watered it down. We kept it. We kept the law in abeyance for 2-3 years until they were satisfied that what they had to provide, right, was so insignificant that it was of no value, right? Then we could start implementing it, right? But again, you know, I don't have the law here with me. But the part of the law says that I should not, as a minister, have any of my family members, I mean down to cousins and whatnot, on boards for which I have fiduciary responsibility. But what's happening now? We see people, family members being appointed to boards. I mean, you know, again, we see your political supporters who do not necessarily have any skill that they can bring to that board. We put the people on the board and we provide them with no governance training, right? I mean, I'm talking to young, well, not young, I came on in professional a couple weeks ago. And he said that he was asked to go and sit on this board. And so he decided to go around, because it was the politician asked him, was a personal friend and whatnot, right? And the first board meeting he went to, the chairman is moving a motion to get something you want done, right? So he said, no, sir, no. You can't move the chairman. You can't. You as chairman, you should not be moving a motion. You can ask somebody else to move a motion to that effect. But Robert's Rules of Orders and standard governance does not allow you as chairman to move the board, to move the motion, right? And it was kind of frowned at, right? But this person is professional enough to have held up the argument. But again, when one of the things I tried to do on the Public Accounts Committee in order to facilitate the members being able to participate, I was lucky because I got training in UK early on about it. But I insisted that when they had these training programs, all of my members had to go, right? And get the training so that they understood what their concerns and what their restrictions and personal restrictions should be. When we ran into the situation where we created all of these councillors, right now called parliamentary secretaries, which is proper, and I support that, but they were also in the Public Accounts Committee, I suggested to them that when the ministry for which they were a councillor came up, they should recuse themselves. I didn't insist that they not come to the meeting. I'm no problem come to the meeting, right? But don't participate and declare so the public will know that the reason you are not participating on this particular report is because it is about an entity for which you have some responsibility. Because if for no other reason, the optics of it doesn't look good, and one or two times you had members which led me to that decision, who would come there with a set of questions to provide support for the person who the report was about, and therefore, and an effort to counter the findings of the Auditor General. They would ask questions that would give them an opportunity to divert, right, the public opinion on to something else. And that's not what we were meeting about. You
Right.
know, ours was there to scrutinize the report.
Yeah. We do have a caller join us, Mr. Ezard. We're speaking to Mr. Ezard Miller. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling. Well, we had a caller, Mr. Ezard. And Fox, is that the final break that we should take? Is that it? Good opportune time to do that. And certainly thank
Maybe
you
the
for
person
your...
will call back.
Yeah, maybe they will. Stay tuned.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The National Cultural Foundation presents Red Sky Marketplace, your chance to support Cayman's artists and artisans and buy local. This Saturday, February 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. inside the Hawkwill Theatre. Admission is free. Visit over a dozen booths featuring photography, paintings, sculptures, jewelry, ceramics, furniture, home and beauty accessories, and more. Check out the CNCF Facebook and Instagram pages at Cayman Culture for more information.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Government's new recruitment portal offers job seekers a paperless online process that makes it easy to apply for more than one job anywhere, anytime. With this step forward in our online recruitment presence, you can keep track of outstanding applications and appointments and receive notifications about your applications. Visit the careers.gov.ky portal and use the new one-stop shop for civil service recruitment to further your career.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks too to Mr. Ezard Miller for his time. We do have another caller, sir. Hey, good afternoon. As we go straight to the phones, welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello. Good afternoon. Okay.
Hello.
We shall get that connected up. Put the red button in the blue button. All right. Well, sometimes it's interesting how it happens, but
Yeah.
let's see if
Electronics, my dear, electronics.
Hey, good afternoon. All right. Well, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And I use this as an example. Technology, like money, is a great servant but a bad master.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think if we would pay attention to what is being said, we will learn more. And as you were sharing with us, this is not just about education now, not just about historical context, but perhaps a warning as to what could befall if we're not careful.
I think that the difference of where we are as a country now, when we leave, and I'm leaving politics, and a country where it was when I got involved in politics, we're much more sophisticated. That the problems are much more complex, and therefore we need to spend more time, more effort, right, to make sure that we're identifying what the problem is, right, and that we're finding a solution to that problem.
Not creating
we too often it's too easy for politicians and senior civil servants to create a problem for a solution that they have. Right? And oftentimes we find that solution is not really related to this issue over here. But that's the one that gets implemented,
All right, well, let's see if we have a solution for the phones. We do have a caller. Welcome, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Doreen. Good afternoon to Mr. Ezra.
Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you today?
Fine, thanks, Mr. Ezra. Nice to hear him on the radio.
Okay, thank you.
Missed him, so
okay.
Now because you're not in politics that we don't miss you,
Oh, yeah, and I miss you all too, so.
I know you should know you miss more, never know.
Right.
And anyhow, the very important topic that you're talking about, immigration, about unemployment and everything. I have a question. Maybe you can assist me on how I need to go about it or what to do. Regarding people coming in here, and it's been happening for quite a while now. People coming in here, like for instance, if they come here like on a government contract, their spouses are able to come, and now, as far as I know, they're supposed to be dependent on their spouse. But what's happening with them is, or what is happening, a lot of them now is picking up employment, which I don't think it is very fair because they actually would come here as visitors. They're not coming here as employees. They came as a dependent on to their family.
Right.
So they should not be allowed to pick up employment. I don't know what you think about that one.
I agree with you. And it happens far too often, and some of them will even apply in their maiden name so that you don't know that their partner has a big time executive job.
Exactly, because we're getting a lot of it, especially in the tourism industry.
Because they should have to, they have to identify when they make the application for the dominant partner, whoever that is, whether the person is coming as a dependent on them or not. And if once they come as a dependent, it should not be easy to transfer from a dependent because they accepted when they took the job and the salary and everything else that their spouse would not have to work because they will bring them as their dependent, and they should not be allowed to get employment. I agree with you.
Well, they need to look at. We need to look into that matter. I hope someone from the labor force and immigration is listening because we get that far too often, especially in the tourism. Just before the COVID, we've had a lot of that where they were dependents, they were government employees, and they have these dependents that they brought down here, and then now they turn around, they went and got a job, which takes up another job from another Caymanian who could have held that post.
Yep.
And they need to look into that because that is wrong. It is very unfair. That's another way that Caymanians are being outnumbered in that.
On sideline, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, thank you too for that. And we have one comment here, Mr. Ezra, about the idea that you reference. I was trying to read it through the break, and I can't use as an excuse that I don't have glasses on. but paraphrasing, the person said that we blame politicians, but are we willing to look at A, civil servants, the civil service, and brackets, and B, the private sector, the seniors in the private sector who tend to drive now. I just sent a message back for clarity, but the inference that I've taken from it is that, we point fingers, but sometimes, we don't see
the... But most of them only blame the politicians, we don't, when we see a change in immigration law creating one of some of these where you can come in, I can't remember what they call them now, but they have various terms. But basically, somebody rich can come in and invest, and they can get PR and Cayman status and all. That is not being raised by Caymanians.
Right.
That's being raised by either the attorneys or accountants who's representing them in Cayman now, right? And see an opportunity for them to get more out of them if they bring them here, right? And promote them, and those are the kind of things that I have always believed that we have to look at with much more scrutiny. And we should not be putting policies in place that are not designed for Cayman and Caymanians. We should not be. We should be a little concerned if we're putting programs and policies and legislation in place that are designed from the onset to benefit non-Caymanians and to give them opportunities that Caymanians don't have.
And I'll ask this in light of perhaps an interest in statistics and potentially what censuses can paint in relation to demographics and the like. Given that we have so many different people here from almost everywhere in the world. On a personal level, I feel that my life has been rich. I feel that through them, I've got to not only learn about things and places and people, but I've got to appreciate my country more, because they see, the late Desmond Seals, for instance, used to have on the front page of his paper, the foreigners in Caymanian, and, everyone, when asked what they liked, of all the many things that they would say, they say, boy, the best thing is the best place to raise a family. If Cayman is this place, and it's, as you said, it used to be social harmonious, we question that. It was political, stable, economically secure, had all these things. If we who live and work here don't consciously, deliberately, with a concerted effort, preserve that, promote that, we can point fingers to many jurisdictions where it's not going to be the same. Are we at the precipice now where that sort of thing is imminent? I mean, we see a military being proposed, call it what you want. We're seeing serious economic considerations, businesses being threatened, employment, education, healthcare, all the markers of a society that could be in some peril.
Well, I think that we are in too much peril to be comfort. And again, when you look around at the developments, you look around at the economic growth and the places that is taking place, right? If you are nationalistic and you are about Cayman and Caymanians, you have to be concerned, because while I'm not arguing that building all of these buildings and stuff may not be good for the government treasury, right? I don't think the government is getting 50% of what it should be getting. For instance, if we didn't waive all these fees and whatnot, we could build all the high schools we needed. Secondly, I tried from the 80s to convince Lands and Survey that the way to control and make sure that government got the stamp duty was the number of transfer documents. And if you gave a real estate person or company 1 to 20, you don't get no more until the 20 is turned in. Because I have reason to believe, because I've had it has been requested for me to do it, right? And I refuse to do it, where people are not turning in when they buy a condo, they are not immediately going to Lands and Survey and paying the 7.5%. They encourage the person and some of these developers, in order to close a sale, will say, well, I can, if I don't fill in this section of it, I just sign it. Then you can keep this as a bearer bond. You don't need to pay the stamp duty, right? And if you sell it, right, you can still sell it. You can fill this in then, or you can tell that buyer the same thing. Because, rightly or wrong, I believe that many of the sales in real estate is people, and this is my belief, using it for their own advantage, whether to money launder or clean up money, right? Or selling it to themselves. They buy it today for $400,000, right? They don't go to land register and pay the 7.5% and get ownership and get it recorded in the thing. And they create another entity, legal entity, company or whatever, 2 weeks later, and they sell it themselves for $800,000, right? And they still don't go, right? Because it's just going through these machinations up the line, and eventually they may or they may not pay the stamp. Now, if the thing was numbered, right, you have to go and pay stamp duty, right? And it would become easier for government to monitor these kinds of things if you had to turn in your transfer document. So, I mean, I have had a big one, I do some small development in North Side. I mean, and I'm not talking something that I dream up. I built and sold some apartments. And I had an instance where one of the top 4 law firms, right, wrote me a letter as the developer, because it was still registered in my name, right, asking me to sign a transfer document to someone that I didn't know because of the person had transferred to their name. Well, I mean, I wrote them back. I read a long letter, and they wrote me and told me, listen, my honest and integrity allowed me to do this. Now, if you need a copy of the original document that I did with this person, right, in which it is dated, right, because I couldn't use that one, you see, because penalty acquire. I'm quite happy, free of cost, to give you a copy. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted to be able to transfer it from that person to somebody to whom I had no idea or no dealing with, right? For ownership person for that person, right? Without paying the stamp duty and the penalties that would come in. Because this is like 5-6 years after I sold this to this person, you know? And so if it's going on a small scale, right? And I'm confident that I am not the only person or that law firm wrote those kind of things too, right? So it is, and like I said earlier, I don't believe in controlled development, which allows development to be confined to a particular group of people or to any kind of government control. But I believe that the government has a responsibility to plan the economic, social of the country, you know. And if we had proper long-term planning, nobody would come here and go and hold a press conference and talk, but I won't build a 20,000 store building here, or a 50 store one or a 100 store one, because it would be in the plan, you know.
Right. Well, Mr. Miller, we certainly appreciate you taking the drive from the north side coming in with us. I hope that people as they listen would appreciate that we can continue to benefit from those either who have retired, who've changed occupations, who may have hit a certain milestone in their lives. I think to some of the places in other jurisdictions, from the stores we may frequent where we're greeted by an elderly person, it not only gives them something to occupy a few hours of their day or additional income, but it gives us a chance to engage in somebody and maybe learn something that they would share. So people like yourselves.
I'm writing a book, so make sure you buy it when it comes out.
Will you autograph it for me? All right. Yeah, man. I very much would like to be.
Yeah. And the title of the book is A Promise Kept. I had it on. I used to say, A Promise Kept. I was right and they were wrong. But certain influential people in my family have convinced me to drop. I was right and they was wrong.
Yeah.
But it's based on a promise I made to my mother. I mean, just after I lost the election, somebody from the media met me in town and they said, well, says that you're sorry to hear you lost the election. You know, we could always the normal thing. So, what was your greatest accomplishment in that period of time? So I said, I kept my promise to my mother. Jaw drop. What do you mean? What I can do with it? I said, that has everything to do with it. Because you may hear that Ezra Miller was involved in controversies and often created controversies, oftentimes just to stimulate discussion in the country and to get the other point of view out there so people would know what was happening. But you know, hearing about involving in corruption. So.
All right.
Thank you,
sir.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, God's willing, we won't impose on you too much, but we certainly will extend the invitation.
But when I come to Georgetown now, I'm itching to get back now. So
I'm sure that
it's a temporary past, true now.
Yeah, Georgetown probably feel the same thing, but he did it too long.
I had to tell somebody.
All right.
Over the L Tom, so we need to talk to you. And I'm not business.
Well, to our listeners, we want you to have a wonderful, safe, and blessed weekend. Join Mr. Oren. Until Monday, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Cayman, the voice, the